Hello, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Discovering Wellness. Today, we joined a guest who is called Bhumi, and she's from the United States. So, long story, Harriet Russell is a yoga instructor. She's a trainer of trainers, and she's also a cross-cultural adaptation coach. She's worked with numerous organizations across geographies and all the way from Japan to Kazakhstan to the United States to, well, let me not list that out. Welcome to this show, Harriet Bhumi Russell.
Thank you, Sandeep. I'm so excited to be with you today and to speak to the audiences out there.
Likewise. And we want to learn from the wealth of experience you would have across cultures, across countries. Can you tell us a little about that to begin with?
I have found that when wellness is top of mind for people, it doesn't matter where they're from across the globe.
Quite a point.
And the idea of wellness is always top of mind because what do we want the most? We want a happy life, and a happy life comes from fullness in our body, mind, and heart, which is what I call wellness.
That's interesting that you straight away equate happiness with wellness. I have found some other guests on the show doing that too. But can you elaborate more on that, because you've gone deep into the heart and stuff like that? What exactly is this about, and how does this ring true with corporate lingo?
Oh, yes, of course. We use a lot of wellness speak in corporate. I find that the mind, when the mind is the leader, then all the stress of the mind takes away the body's energy. Mm-hmm. And then we're just going in that direction. But when the body's energy is full because of wellness, because we're balanced physically, then the prana, or the energy of the body, leads and the mind follows. This means we can have more clarity of mind, less stress, communicate more effectively, understand what is our own blocks and unconscious bias, understand then that that is what might be taking over. We're just more clear-minded and more able to see our humanness without fear. And then we can move forward into conscious relationships, good business dynamics, and be able to see that all of us have our human mind, but wellness, or that leading of the energy from a balanced body connecting to the mind, that body-mind connection, that is what I call the heart. When the body and the mind are connected in the moment, the heart naturally opens. This is wellness to me.
Terrific, because in the Orient, a lot of traditions call the heart mind. And yoga, as we know in India, of course, is the joining, the communion of the mind and the body. And that's what gives it the power to release the energy where we need it. Tell us how, over the last few years, you've seen the shifts in wellness and what seems to be working now in those spaces.
Yes, I would like to address that, but I wanted to segue back to what you said about the mind-heart in some cultures being one unit. In the Japanese language, which I speak fluently, I lived in Japan many, many years. The Chinese character, the Japanese language, for heart and mind is the same. I'm not talking about the physical entity of a brain or the heart organ, but the concept. And that's because heart and mind are the same in Eastern cultures. And then hara, the belly center, the gut, the inner knowing, is the lead. So there's an expression in corporate, which is he or she has a small hara, or a green hara, an immature hara. That means someone's immature. It's small. But when your hara, your belly, I always try to think of like a big bellied Buddha or something. When the belly is big, meaning joy and happiness, then you are mature. And that is a business concept. Whereas in the West, we tend to divide mind and heart as two separate entities. And we forget about our gut feelings because we're emotionally driven. We're into the emotionally driven of the romance era. Our culture is newer in the West. It's a little bit, the heart leads, but the heart of the emotion, not the heart of balanced love. So that is a great difference between corporate working with in yoga, as you said, or with stress management in corporate when it has to do with people from the East or from the West. In general, I have to always emphasize that distinction between mind and emotionally driven heart is really mind generated. And hara, the belly, the gut feeling, and that intuition comes from that wellness balance. And that's what we try to tune into. So what I work with across cultures, if that's where your real question was, is how to get people to be quiet enough to sync from a brain activity level of awakeness, not awakenedness, but just being sharp and thinking all the time, into a place where they can kind of breathe, focus on the breath, open the heart, and feel what is in their intuitive mindset, their gut feeling. And that can be very, very helpful because, as you know, some cultures are more talkative. That shows aggression, it shows leadership, it shows I can take charge. But it's kind of a Western concept in many ways. Whereas the quietness of patience and listening and feeling is quite predominant in, and I'll use the example of Japan since I know it so well. And sometimes that's seen as non-participation or as a place of disinterest, or even if someone looks down towards their belly, it might be considered secretive. So I try to pull away these concepts in corporate stress where we're working with conflict resolution of misunderstandings that are based on culture and not personal differences, and just show that what our concept is about leadership, good business, time management, hierarchy or collectiveness, whatever the team concepts are, that they might be different in a different culture. And how do I get there? I have to look at the idea of relax, stop, and feel.
Relax,
awareness,
stop, and feel.
Stop and feel. Or awareness first of yourself, awareness of the other, acceptance of yourself, which brings you to acceptance of the other, and then the adjustment within yourself of saying, hey, maybe there is a different way. Let's match. And then the adjustment from the other comes. But we have to move from thinking and doing to feeling and being. That's the key. One of the blocks to opening to Eastern ways that have been around thousands of years is the language of use. For example, if someone says stress management or someone says mindfulness, now mindfulness is an acceptable term. But if someone says yoga or meditation, which might be one of the many techniques to leading to mindfulness and wellness, there might be a block because of a misunderstanding that this is a cultural religious entity. In a urban environment, a large city where multi-cultures and multinationals are, this doesn't seem to be a problem. But it more in a more mid-country location or a smaller community where it's more homogenous and less exposure. Less exposure means less understanding. Less understanding means more fear. Fear of something unknown that could be helpful. So we try to package it so the package gets opened. And we change our language, because those are not the only techniques. They are just some of the techniques that I can draw upon. But in a corporate setting, I don't use the word yoga.
Okay.
I don't use the word meditation, but I'm teaching from those foundations and principles. And it is not a religion.
That is very interesting. So, Harriet, what would you say is not working in today's context?
Today, the fad of yoga is so popularized that every young person is with a yoga pack. Every commercial on television, every billboard. It's the fad, it's popular, and it's seen as only, unfortunately, a physical endeavor. 90% of it is physical. It's so thought of as a physical way of getting healthy, but the mind is often forgotten, and the stress is still there. The stress of yoga studio owners running around crazy because they're running a business.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's a yoga business, their
How
mindset's still
ironic that is.
business. Families and business, and I don't have time. And that I see is the not as positive side of this movement of all exposure, every kind of diet, vegetarian, vegan, no one's laughing anymore. Everyone's saying, oh, this, that, the fads are there, but no one can discern what's real and foundational because it's so much popularized. And so the change can be, how do we help people now in a world where the languaging is open, but the knowledge is not there? Find the right fit for them individually. It's not a young person's get fit, look slim experience anymore about wellness. People can be very well and whole, eating different ways and doing different kinds of exercise because it's generated from a sense of happiness and joy of body-mind connection. Our bodies are always going to look different from each other. There's no one size fits all.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And looking into the future, Bhumi, what do you think is the direction in which things ought to move the way you would see them?
Where I would like to see the future is to see more depth of individualizing the options that are put out for people. And also generationally, every magazine, art magazine, senior magazines, young people's magazines, they all have the tips for best health, what to do, good sleep, eat well, and exercise. But what more is there is where I would like to see the future for all generations, for all body types, and for all walks of life. Not everyone sees their wellness as a heart-centered journey in life. Everyone just wants to feel good. So how can we help people feel good by breaking apart and putting back together an individualized approach for certain kinds of people, certain categories of people, and allow them to really understand that the mind is the biggest cause of stress and that all the imbalances in the body can be helped and sometimes cured from shifting mindset. And I'm not just talking about positive attitude. I'm talking about changing brain waves and hormones by a natural means. And this understanding is rarely taught. That's where I would like to see the future of wellness, to make sure to include that stress comes from the mind and love can cure many things or help us accept what we cannot change.
Fabulous. To end on a note of love and the power of love is such a wonderful place to end. Thank you so much, Harriet Russell, for this episode. And viewers, there's a lot more where this is coming from. Please go into the Wellness Seekers Academy on LinkedIn and check out all our past episodes. Learnings from corporate wellness seekers across the globe. We welcome you there and thank you for being on this episode. Take care.